Galina Mai. I am Bobby Kamara, talking with you today about Pelehonuamea. This is being recorded after the presentation that I did on February 12th. There were a couple of technical glitches and the recording started a bit late. In any case, I was born and raised in Honoka'a on the island of Hawaii in Hamakua. My great-grandparents came from Madeira in the Azores and settled in Aloha and Kaluapele, and our family stayed there, till now. I have been living in Kīlauea in Volcano for the last 35 years and retired from the National Park Service at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. I write, I edit, but more than that, I am a naturalist and a geographer. I like to believe that I have a very broad knowledge of Hawaii, of this island, the island of Hawaii. And I really enjoy sharing that with people. I found out just before the program began that Pat Bacon, who was a Hanai of Mary Kamaʻāina and her husband George Bacon, passed away on January 23rd of this year. She was 100. She was just shy of her 101st birthday. And Auntie Pat spent many years working at Bishop Museum, and she is what many people say the last direct connection to Mary Kamaʻāina. And so I put this little picture of Lehua, and in the background you can see that little white puff of cloud coming up from Halima'uma'u. This picture was taken in January of 2018, just before the massive hulihia at the summit. So I had a few minutes of silence for Auntie Pat. Many people today are familiar with this oli, Eho Mai. It was written by Auntie Edith Kanakaole. I was in her Hawaiian language class at Hilo, then known as Hilo College, in the spring of 1974. And a year or two later, I was fortunate enough to be in a chant class that she taught. And this was an oli that we did at the beginning of every class, so that the hidden knowledge or the hidden wisdom of the chants that we were studying and practicing would be revealed to us. When Auntie taught this to us, she said clearly, if you are going to be studying other topics and looking at other ideas, please feel free to substitute in the second line, rather than o nā mea huna no e au o nā mele, the chants. Change that, because not all the time are you going to be looking for information in mele. You might be studying waves or kalo or the practice of mahi'ai or whatever. Whatever it is you want to be granted knowledge about, put that in the line. And so today we are changing it up, and we're going to ask for to be revealed the hidden wisdom in the realm of Pelehonuamea. And I typically do this whenever I'm leading groups of people walking up at Kaluapele. And I find it interesting, but not surprising, that most of the time I always see something new and different that escaped my attention before. So this, I believe, opens us up to seeing, smelling, hearing, understanding things that we didn't know before. I won't do it now because this is a re-recording, but I would urge you to go to the YouTube link down below. I think it came from the protocol up at Pu'uhuluhulu a little more than a year ago, and that is the version of Ehomai that Auntie taught to many people. So, in the world of Oli and Mele and chants in general, there's one that is found if you have the volumes of Fornander. In the back of, I think it's volume 6, I may be wrong, a text called Hekau no Hi'iaka. And this is a song for Hi'iaka or to Hi'iaka. This version, the translation is by Halaoki Kuhi. And there's another version, the Fornander version is posted in the folder that you have access to online. His English translation is a bit more old-fashioned, a little bit more Victorian. But this chant I find fascinating because it refers to places like Keahialaka, like Pu'ulena, talking about the surf in the pit. And, you know, when they talk about that, it's not actual ocean surf. It's the waves of Pele, the molten lava, sloshing back and forth. I think it's really interesting for us to understand that as awesome and pu'iwa-ing, you know, that very, very surprising awesomeness of the 2018 eruption down in Keahialaka, it's happened before, and it will happen again. And material such as this reminds us all of that. You know, this is not a new thing. This has been going on for many, 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 many centuries. Some people ask, well, where does the name Kaluapele come from? And this map was drawn by a Mr. Kalama, who attended Lahaina Luna School on Maui. I don't know much about him, but it's from the 1830s. And the next slide is a close-up of the lower right-hand side of this island. And there you can see Kaluapele o Kīlauea. So other people might say, well, it might be Kaluapele or Kaluopele. For our purposes, because we are kind of influenced by Western practice, I guess, we like to be able to have a citation. And this is the first map labeled with the feature Kaluapele that I've been able to find. And so the park now in Volcano, they are using the term Kaluapele to refer to Kilauea caldera at the summit. It's also interesting that the capital P that Mr. Kalama uses is a reference to the elemental Pele, Pelehonuamea. But if you write it with a lowercase p, a small p, that is molten lava, Pele. Small p Pele is red, active, flowing lava. So that's another thing for us to consider and think about. And again, you know, everything I talk about is often prefaced by, you know, not all knowledge is found in or exhausted in one school. Auhe pauka ike ka halau hoʻokahi. many different versions, many different ideas, and as long as you're clear about where your source is, that to me is all that matters. Nobody's more right than somebody else. Everything is good. I should rephrase that. Everything is good except for the map on the right. These are two maps of Hawaii, of the island of Hawaii. The one on the left was drawn in the late 1800s and depicts accurately all of the ahupua'a on this island. It's kind of hard to zoom in on this screen, but it's available online at the Land Survey Office website and also is in the folder that is shared with all of you. The map on the right apparently is from some people on Kauai who drew this as a model, I guess, depicting watershed boundaries. The problem that I have with this is that it appears to depict traditional political ahupua'a, but it does not. Many of the names are misspelled. They are not. I don't know how to say this well. They don't match the map on the left. So I urge people not to use the map on the right unless you have a deep understanding of how those boundaries came to be. Okay, so just use the Dorn one on the left is awesome. And we can zoom in, we think, to the Dorn map. And you can see one thing I find really, really cool, Halima'uma'u is right there kind of in the middle. And it is bisected by this boundary line running right down to the coast. So over here we can see that Kapapala Ahupua'a is here. And then Keoho, which looks like an ahupua'a, is over here. But Keoho is in fact an ili, a subdivision of Kapapala. But Halima'uma'u was a very clear and definite boundary marker. And, it is, of course, the most important cultural site on this island. Okay, excuse me. One source of information that I find extremely valuable is a body of work called the Boundary Commission Testimonies. Zoom in on that. And they are found on microfilm in various repositories. I know Hilo has a set of testimonies. So these were all handwritten minutes of meetings during which the boundaries of ahupua'a were described and then later on mapped. I find, I've had younger friends come to me and say, "Uncle, can you read this for me? I can't read it." And certainly the old-fashioned script is challenging, I guess, because young people don't learn cursive in school. But this is a description for the boundaries of Kapapala, and it starts out over here. Kinoi Kane sworn. I was born at Kapapala Ka'u at the time of Kiholomua. As people in the old days didn't keep calendars like we do, they recognized important dates. And Kiholomua is the building of the first fish pond at Kiholo. Then he states that he moved to Oahu 10 years ago. Before that, I had always lived at Kapapala. Am a Kamaʻāina of said land and know the boundaries. They were pointed out to me in olden times when it was kapu, to catch birds on any land but the one you lived on. Okay, that's a really, really important sentence to me, especially these days when everybody claims a right to do basically whatever they want. But, you know, 100 and whatever, 40 years ago, it was very, very clear that people knew where they were on the land and they respected and obeyed boundaries. A lot of people today, they don't know. So I would encourage all of you, go home, you know, maybe this weekend, figure out where you are. What ahupua'a do you live in? Where were you born? What district are you in? All of that may not make you a bigger paycheck, but it'll help ground you more. The birds that he talked about include, I guess, excuse me, kolea. Yeah. So this is a map of the crater that was drawn in the 1880s. I have the field books for this map. They are really, really interesting. And one thing I noticed, okay, we can zoom in now. On map, the other one, yep. So one thing I noticed here is that there are a number of kolea names on this map. Let me see if I can do the scrolling. So if we go, wait, should I go down? Yeah, down. Okay. So it's kind of hard to see. Maybe it's too big. But right over here is Alelekolea. Down here is Holoholo Kolea. There is up on top Kanikolea. But these are all survey points. You know, all the triangles with a dot inside on the map are survey stations. So the only kolea name that most of us recognize at the summit is very near Holoholo Kolea, and it's the plain over here, this flat area here, on which is located Akanikolea. And Akanikolea is one of those legendary wahi pana on which Kamapua'a stood and taunted Pele. He was infatuated with her, and you know he went to Akanikolea and stood on the height and you know wanted her. I took this picture in January of 2018, 6 months before everything changed. And back then, I was looking at this scene, and it's like, why would he stand over here? Because you can't really see. You can see the rim of Halemaʻūmaʻu in the distance. You can see the fume coming up. You can see Pu'ulaʻula up there on the horizon of Mauna Loa, which is at 10,000 feet, to give you an idea of scale here. It didn't occur to me that Kaluapele looked vastly different than it does now. And I'm working, you know, with geologists to try and get a more current photograph of this site. So Akanikolea is a wahi pana, a legendary place at Kīlauea, one of many. Another one that I love is called Kalupe, or Pohakulupe. And this is a close-up of the far wall of Kaluapele. And you can see that very light-colored rock where it says body and body. And then you go to the right some more, there's tail. And then at the very end, there's tip, that little kind of rectangle. So Kalupe is a kite, but it is also a stingray. And this image in stone is a depiction of what many believe to be a stingray. It's pretty awesome. And of course, there's a geological explanation for this, but we don't have time. So if you're interested, give me a holler and we'll happily talk about that. Okay. In 2018, we had 3 months of absolutely remarkable activity. I live up in Volcano, 4.5 miles or so from Halemaumau. And in those 3 months, we were experiencing between 40 and 50 felt earthquakes every day. And of those, 62 of them, which are listed here, were connected with the subsidence or collapse of the floor of Kaluapele. Each one was marked by a 5-point something earthquake. I started writing a blog just to keep my sanity, and you'll have access to that. I'll show you the address at the end. But you know, I would get up at maybe 3:30 in the morning because my house was shaking. I couldn't sleep, and so to occupy myself and to make it so that I could correct misconceptions written in the media instead of just being nuha and grumbling all the time. I decided to start writing. And as of a couple days, or actually today, I posted one today, and I think it's number 202. So if you go to my blog, it's essentially a diary of what happened during those 3 months. One of the more remarkable things when I was sitting in my loft and typing away, during these earthquakes associated with collapse of the summit, I noticed that the motion was very, very different. It was slow. It was wobbly. It was like one were sitting on a boat in an ocean that's kind of with rolling waves. And at first, I thought, "Oh, this is like an ami," you know, because I have a hanging light in my living room, and it would spin during the earthquake. Instead of going from side to side, it spun in circles. And at first it went, you know, around to the right, and then it went around to the left, and I couldn't figure out, is it an ami akau or an ami hema? For those of you who dance hula, you know what those are. And then I thought, maybe it's just an oniu, you know, one of those figure 8, roll your hips around, not ninu, but oniu. And so I was keeping track of this, and then I eventually ended up talking with my friend and long time mentor, Auntie Edith's daughter, Pua Kanahele. What's her name? Kanakaole. Pua Kanakaole Kanahele. So we let's go back one. So I was talking on the phone with her one day, and we're trying to figure out what can we do about this, because I believed that we need a name. You know, if culture is to be living and thriving, you can't just kind of ignore stuff that happens, especially when that stuff has a really big impact on you and your life. So she mentioned the word lu. And I looked up lu in the dictionary because we're on the phone. And look at that. To scatter, to throw as ashes. I thought that was amazing. And then you keep reading the 4th line toward the end, to shake, to cast off. And so between us, we decided that these things would be called lu o new. And with Pua's input, she figured out that this was not a phenomenon related to Pele, but one related to her sister, Hi'iaka. And because no one that we know of had experienced and written about any of this type of activity before, Mrs. Kanahele determined that we were being introduced to a new hi'iaka, hi'iaka lu'oniu. And the photograph on the right was taken during the last lu'oniu in early August 2018. And you can see all of the dust from falling rocks from the walls of Kaluapele and from the newly enlarged walls of Halemaʻūmaʻu, that circular area in the middle. It is and was a remarkable series of events. Those events were responsible for the complete change in appearance of Kaluapele. So this photograph I used on the face of my blog, the cover, and the date is there, April 13, 2018, a beautiful clear morning. It had been raining, so the pastures of Kapapala Ranch, which is that green wedge, were nice and green. You can see Pele active in her home inside Halemaʻūmaʻu. Up on the rim, over here on the right, is what was the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory and Jaggar Museum. So this was in April, 2 weeks before everything started happening. And then it happened. And this is what we were left at the end of July. If you look at again, the pasture area, the same green, although a little bit yellow, but this is basically the same view. It's absolutely astonishing. And then I go walking up in the park as my exercise, and on Tuesday we heard helicopters from USGS, and they flew and they took this picture. Again, a very similar view, but it kind of looks like a painting. But again, you can see the pastures of Kapapala. In the background, there's snow-capped Mauna Loa. And the foreground, you can see a tiny, tiny bit of red Pele at the base of that plume. And then right below it is what we originally called Mokulana'au, a drifting island. It's an accumulation of material. Let's go back to the previous picture, if can. So the bottom of Halemaʻūmaʻu here, a lake started forming, and we'll see that on Bing a little bit later. The lake started forming in August of 2019. Groundwater started percolating into the void. So when the current eruption began at 9:39 in the evening of December 20th, the first place that lava broke out was on the shore of the lake, and it started a series of very violent explosions, and all of the debris that exploded out of the lake ended up falling back into the crater and piling up, and that's what this big moku is. Just a big pile of loose lava. Okay, with all of this, just super fast changes that we've seen, nobody anticipated. You just kind of shake your head when we get to see them. I had written maybe a year ago now this little sheet, and all of these will be available to all of you at some point soon. I wrote this about respecting and honoring place. A lot of people talk about Aloha Aina and their Aina Aloha, and I just wanted to write it down so people understood that those are more than words. You know, it means something. I worked at the park not because of, you know, the giant paychecks that I got, because they weren't, but because I truly have a deep and abiding aloha for that place. And I think many of us work at jobs where our practice is more important than almost anything that we do. One of the things that we've seen happening recently, you know, when people go up to visit Pele, they're often really rowdy and loud and you know, kind of disrespectful. You know, we've lost the sense of wonder and awe sometimes, and how one should behave. The Kaluapele is a church. The problem with that church is that it does not have square walls and a roof. So if we go to any other religious structure, whether it's a, you know, a Christian church or a Buddhist temple or a synagogue or anything like that, there are behavioral expectations. You know, you cannot go in these places and just kind of make any kind. You have to behave yourself. And I truly believe that the same thing applies to Kaluapele. Same thing. Behave yourself. Be thoughtful. This is a fantastically amazing place that often is not honored as it should be. Okay, next one. Okay, so that's me, or my back at least. That round cloud that I'm peering at, we've come to call an ao mahu. So ao is cloud and mahu is steam. So that cloud condenses from, or condensed, this is, you know, prior to the eruption that we're seeing now. The hot steam rose up out of the pit, and as it rose, it cooled and condensed into that cloud. So there's my name, my email address, and the address for my blog. If you just go into Google and type in dispatches from volcano, one of the results will be my blog. And it's in the chat, I am being told. Okay, let's go look. We're going to do a little Bing thing. And if any of you don't know Bing, Bing is actually kind of fun. I like it better than Google Earth because the imagery seems to be a lot crisper and sharper. And I'm going to try drive. So up here, you got to go to aerial. And then nice satellite. And this is kind of old because how do we know? This is a plume of fume, not smoke. This is fume coming out of Pu'u'o'o. The summit of Kīlauea is there, and I just the right direction. Nice. And and my hale is over here in Monoloa State Subdivision. So from here to here, you can see how close. You know, people in Volcano Village and at the Volcano Gulf subdivision, all of us were very, very close to the activity that happened in 2018. And this picture is kind of cool because it shows the lake, that kind of golden colored water. is the lake of water that accumulated in Kaluapele. So most times when people come to the park, they're going to drive in on the main highway. They're going to turn in at the entrance station. They'll go to the visitor center. But a thing to notice about this picture is that the right-hand side over here is really green, and the left-hand side over here is kind of tan or brown colored. And that's because the summit of Kīlauea at about 4,000 feet elevation is just high enough to block most of the trade wind clouds coming from this side from getting over to the Ka'u Desert. This is the Ka'u Desert over here. And so we have a really interesting situation where it's super wet on one side and super dry on the other. And my favorite walk used to be parking here at the Devastation Trail parking lot, if any of you have been up there. And now this section of road right here is closed for pretty obvious reasons, because over here, no more road. I mean, you can see where it used to go, and it fell into the pit. And let's see, this line right here, you can see that. Here's a ghost image of what used to be the Halima'uma'u parking lot. It's kind of interesting, to say the least. The place, Akanikolea, that I pointed out earlier is right over here. On this ledge here. It's in a closed area, so unfortunately right now people are not able to get out there. But if you can recall the view, of just a flat floor of the caldera and then looking out across here, it's not like that anymore. Kaluapele, back up a little bit. Kaluapele is on the wall. Right, you can kind of see it. The tail is over here, and it comes like this, and then the body is over here. The view is a little bit kapakahi. It's kind of skewed and crooked, but Kaluapele is over there. The old Jaggar Museum and the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory buildings are here. The floor of the caldera, most of it is early 1900s lava flows, all of this gray stuff here. And then the darker material here, most of this is 1974. And then some of it on the edge here is 1971. And then, of course, we have Kilauea Iki, Pu'upua'i. Is the pu'u that formed during the 1959 eruption. Trade winds were blowing. It blew the cinder downwind and blanketed and killed the forest over here. What do I do to get rid of that? I don't want to freak out. Okay. Devastation Trail goes over an area that was buried by all of the cinder fall. There are a number of, okay, let's back up. So the park also goes up Mauna Loa. It's not only the park. So over here, this narrow, dark green spot, there is what's called a Monoloa Strip. It's a narrow band of land connecting the summit and the greater part of Kilauea with the top of Mauna Loa. So this is that wedge of green that we saw before, Kapapala. You might recognize that line. And then this straight line over here is the boundary of Keoho Ranch on this side. And these are all the many lava flows up on Mauna Loa, and then Mokua Ve'o, which is the summit caldera of Mauna Loa, is up here. It's kind of cool, I think. So away from the summit, we'll do that. There we go. Away from the summit, Again, those of you who have been to the park know that you can drive down Chain of Craters Road, all this curvy road, and get down to the coast. And along the way, you're passing a number of pit craters, areas where the ground has fallen in on itself. So there are two main kinds of craters. Kaluapele is one that erupts, or as we've seen recently, collapses. This is Kealapono, and then we have Lua Manu, which is this little tiny one over here. Puhimau is here. Ko'oko'olau, this circular area here, is really old. That's why it's full of forest. And then this is a little pu'u, a cinder cone. And then over here is Hi'iaka. And then Pauahi, and that's the last one. And then the road jogs and goes down to the coast. Mauna is over here. Pu'uhuluhulu is over here. This is a kind of interesting thing. There used to be a pit crater. Aloi was over here, and it got filled in during the eruption of Mauna Ulu. And then over here is Alai. This area was also a pit crater, and this got filled in during the eruptions of Mauna Ulu. One of the maps that I found from the 1850s had a little notation on it, Lua Poho. Now I was trying to figure out, okay, what's the word for pit crater? Lua Poho. So Poho is a depression, you know, like you cup your hand, that is a Poho. So all of this mosaic of lava, the lighter areas are pahoehoe, really smooth, and the darker areas are patches of ʻaʻa. Those are all the Mauna Ulu lava flows from the early 1970s that buried what was then the Chain of Craters Road. And that's kind of the edge of the flow field right there. And then these flows over here are all the pu'u'o'o flows from Pu'u'o'o, which is over here, and then Kupaeanaha was a separate shield over here that erupted for a total of 35 years. And then the town of Kalapana is over here. Papa'ahu, where Punalu'u Heiau, and Pond, some people know it as Queen's Bath, was over here. That's now buried 75 feet deep. There are a number of very dramatic pali on the coast, and they're kind of hard to make out, but this is Hole. Some of you may know the song Hole. It talks about this pali. Poliokeave is here, or here. Helena pali is over here. Plenty places. One of my favorites in the park is Halape. And let's go find Halape. Before, when I used to backpack, I would love going to Halape. Kapu Kapu is over here, and Kapu Kapu is not doubly kapu, it's regal. Kapu Kapu is you know, carry yourself up. It's a regalness. But Halape has a little lagoon. There was a big earthquake centered nearby in 1975. The whole ground fell down. This is Keaoi Island. A'oi, sharp lava. And then the beach at Halape, campsites over here. There's this big crack in it. Some people call this Halape Iki, but it's actually named Kumuniu, or coconut tree. These are all backcountry trails in the backcountry of the park. This used to look a lot different. Now, if you were to walk down there, there's going to be waist-high grass, all of which is alien. The park used to have a lot of goats, tens of thousands of goats up until the 1970s, and they were like little lawnmowers that kept all the grass short. Things have changed. Okay. Yeah, let's go watch movies. Okay, so that picture, hopefully folks can hear. Can they hear if they unmute or something?
You know what? I don't know.
You know what, Bombay, go watch this and then you can unmute. But this is one of the rock falls or one of the collapse events in July of 2018. This is taken from Volcano House. I love that sign, "Behold the home of Pelehonuamea," under a serious remodel. Okay, so that was that. And you could hear it. I mean, it's all of these are available online. So if if your teachers, okay, this is cool. Watch. The floor is sinking. These are all images off of a webcam in the tower at the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. Let's play it again. You can see the lava lake overflowing onto the floor of Halima'uma'u. The lava lake went away. We had explosions. And then the floor started falling down in early June. And again, incremental collapses. It's just mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling to see. And then this is a kind of jerky, but it's a drone flight from the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory parking lot over, well, it says, over the area. All of that whiteness is lehu, or ash, that was exploded out during the explosive eruptions. Everything looks like this now, except for the color. Most of the ash on the surface has been washed away. Oh, there's a Kauai. I don't know if you folks saw that. Can we go back?
Yep.
Let's go back. Okay, over here. See this? That's a Kauai. A tropic bird flying. Even now, they still go up there. It didn't seem to bother them in the least. This section of rim, it has a piece of road on it. So this was up here. This big block here used to be up at the rim here. All of this white poly is brand new. Used to be, the edge was this dark boundary up here on the left near the top. And if those of you don't like heights, take a breath. This was, I think, 1,600 feet deep right after the events ended. You can see more Kauai. See in here? They're flying around totally unconcernedly. It's kind of cool. They're completely at home. You can see more flat blocks that didn't quite make it all the way to the floor. And again, this process, 62 discrete separate events over 2.5 months or so. And then the drone is going to turn around and then fly back. So this poly over here is brand new. That's all new. You can see Pu'upua'i in the background. This complete poly is new. This over here used to be up here. It's just amazing. And then that's the building of the observatory and the Jaggar Museum people. Okay. Time went by way too fast. I know this was not particularly deep, but I think we did pretty good on time.
Get you back on the camera.
And we're trying to figure out how to make my face magically appear. And then I have minions, I guess, who are going to be managing the questions. I hope you folks have questions. Okay, I'm just going to sit here until I'm told what to do. So, Paul, what we got to do?
Make sure you can hear them.
Okay. Are we good?
Awesome.
You have an echo. There you are. Where's...
Okay.
Okay, Noah. Now what?
Okay, so well, hello, Akanikolea for everything. That was a really solid reminder of sacred names. How our home is really dynamic and ever changing, and a reminder of how it sounds lame to say, but how special everything is, especially places like that, and how we need to open ourselves to the awe and wonder of the world around us, because we do really live in one of the most amazing places on earth. And mahalo everybody in the audience for participating in this virtual Huakaʻi. Thank you. Everybody was really good about checking their microphones. I really appreciate it, and you guys were really attentive to what was going on and helping each other in chat. And that's super awesome to see such a great sense of community here in this group. If anybody has any questions, now would be a good time to type them out in chat so that we can bring them to Anakala Bobby. I'm just gonna say while I'm here that there were a lot of really positive comments. Somebody said maybe you should make your blog into a book.
Wow. Now they can hear me? Yeah. Okay. We turned the lights on so you can see my COVID beard. I am actually working on turning it into a book. I've got a couple of people on Oahu, and I don't know of anybody else that made a diary of the 3 months, which is what I call it. And of course now we're extended and gone more than 3 months. But yeah, thank you. We're working on it.
Someone asked, is the museum and I believe maybe the Jaggar Museum still there?
Is the museum, Jaggar Museum, still there? Yes, the building is physically there, but it is cracked. You know, it hasn't fallen down. Just like the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory building is physically there, but they are not habitable anymore and will be torn down. That the whole area, that area is Uekahuna. That's the traditional name of that place. It's the highest place on the rim of Kīlauea, of Kaluapele. And, you know, in hindsight, there are some of us who believe that those buildings should never have been put there in the first place. So now is a good time to correct mistakes that were made. Okay. That's all.
Yeah.
If any of you are too shy or don't quite understand how to make chat stuff, just shoot me an email. Don't be shy about that. I've got obviously a ton of information. If you're particularly interested in a topic related to the volcano, whether it's geology, biology, plants, birds. I don't do birds too well, but I can figure it out. I'll just ask Noah. He knows everything about birds. So yeah, please ask. If you don't ask, you don't learn. And don't be shy. I'm still learning. I'm still asking questions. Anything else?
sorry, one last one. Is there a link to access the USGS links?
Yes. Excellent. Are we going to do that?
Yes. So yes, if you want to add your email to the chat, we will make sure to get the handouts that Anakala Bobby shared in his presentation, as well as the USGS links over to you folks. So just make sure you add your email to the chat.
The easiest way to get to the HVO website, which I visit frequently, is just Google Kīlauea webcams. That'll take you to HVO. You can look at all the webcams that they have. You can look at the earthquake data. You can look at the tilt meters going up and down. They've got a collection of amazing photographs and videos. Make sure you have time. You know, this is like on a Saturday morning when you're having your coffee. Go visit their site. None of this is secret. Everything that I shared today is all open to the public. It's kind of challenging to get to places sometimes. One of my favorite things is the site that I mentioned earlier. The State Survey Office has an extensive collection of archival maps, many of which were drawn in the last half of the 1800s. And you can print up big poster-sized copies. There are an amazing amount of place name information, geography information. You know, you just have to kind of be interested and know where to go dig. Good.
So I'll turn it over to Noah to some closing comments. Mahalo everybody for being with us again today.
Yes, mahalo all of you.
Yeah, so one last mahalo. Thank you, everybody.
In closing, again, you'll have access to a folder at that tiny URL address. And that folder has, I hope, all of the slides that were shown during this presentation, as well as other bits of information that I find interesting. And if any of you have any questions or want any more information about any other topics about Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, please do not hesitate to contact me. The files in the folder are all public. They're supporting documents for information about Kilauea. Okay? And again, aloha to all of you.